a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Like, you never hear the crawl in Star Wars narrated, but it's actually being narrated by Tony Danza. Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Yes. This is the first Star Trek movie I ever saw in the theater. What? This is like the end-all be, like, this is the beginning of Star Trek for me as a kid. There's that thing of like, even-numbered Star Trek movies are good, the odd-numbered ones are shit or whatever. So this is like considered a shit one. But man, I loved it.
I love it. My introduction to it was on television.
Yeah.
And
they had a big rollout for this on TV. And I remember seeing it on TV also. But man, I remember being in the theater and like
so
when that Genesis planet starts like kind of flaring up and blowing up and stuff. And then, and like, I'll never forget Christopher Lloyd as the Klingon is grabbing onto Shatner's leg, and Shatner just like repeatedly kicks him in the face. So and that kind of blew my mind as a kid because you don't see the good guys do it. Like, he was just, there was no finesse to it. He's just like, and my memory of it as a kid is like that he kicked him in the face like a dozen times. Like, he was just like mashing his face. Like, it was so like over the top to me and crazy. And then watching it here, I think he kicks him in the face like twice.
But he offers to help him earlier.
He offers to help him, but then when it's clear that he's going to pull him
his
down.
one-liner is, "I had enough of you." I had enough of you.
Now, I was going through the Star Trek movies in order. I watched Star Trek, the motion picture, just recently on my big screen. And they have like a refurbished edition. And then they also have like, like the original, cut or whatever. And I was watching the refurbished edition, and it does have like, and I was doing a little jumping back and forth to see the comparison and stuff on there. And they do kind of like, they kind of change some of the backgrounds and stuff to make it more like line up with like what Vulcan is supposed to look like and things like that. I mean, I definitely prefer the original version, but it was interesting seeing the new version. And then I watched Wrath of Khan. And as always, Wrath of Khan is great. You can't argue with it. It's a stone cold classic. But then part 3, The Search for Spock.
Tom.
It's not Wrath of Khan. Like, Wrath of Khan is like, you're eating your popcorn. It's like going and going. But this one, it's so iconic, and there's so many like fun bits. Like, there are some boring moments and stuff, and it's directed by Leonard Nimoy. You get the scene of the Enterprise blowing up.
Yes.
It's like, whoa. And the way that scene plays out, it's so great. And like, just the way it looks and how they're all down on the surface of the planet watching it. And it looks so, the special effect is great. And it looks so real to me. Like, it looks like if you were really going to see that, that's how it would be. Because you see it off in the distance. Burning up. Kind of slowly going down. As if you'd see like, a plane or something. Watching the Star Trek Generations.
Oh, yeah.
Where they have like a similar scene of like the Enterprise blowing up, self-destructing, getting destroyed. And it's like in your face and like you're seeing, and all that. And it just wasn't nearly as effective as just seeing that little thing streaking by. Christopher Lloyd is a really good Klingon. And there's no Klingons in Wrath of Khan. There are Klingons in the first Star Trek movie, and they get like wiped out pretty fast. And then that cool ship, like that's the first time we're seeing that kind of green, bird of prey,
So awesome. And like, Christopher Lloyd plays such a great bad guy. He's awesome in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
And Dennis the Menace. He's great in this.
I could see them coming into this like, okay, Wrath of Khan was good, but I have some notes. Because it's like, Shatner and Khan never get a scene together. They're kind of like, they're never in the same room. They never get to fight each other. like the TV episode Space Seed, where, Khan first appears, like they get some like fisticuffs and stuff. But so it's like, okay, we're going to make sure like Kirk and this Klingon like get to mix it up.
What a great fight at the end. So awesome. Kirk does a spinning wheel kick that Bruce Lee in his prime couldn't.
I was so wowed by that.
blew my fucking mind.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like, he doesn't get in any fist fights in Wrath of Khan either, or Star Trek: The Motion Picture for that matter. But like in this is like closer to Star Trek as we know, because like the old Star Trek, he'd constantly be like doing the double fist. He'd be drop kicking, and like it's nice to, and it's like, yeah, this is middle-aged Kirk, This is, you know, Kirk, who is still thankfully like a good bit older than we are now.
Yeah, I was gonna
but he can, you know, he's kicking ass. And then that flip, that was like
I popped pretty hard.
That was
it's like what?
That was like Leonard Nimoy's birthday gift to William Shatner.
About to say, talk about a director protecting the actor.
Yeah.
They're like, we're not going to shoot your bald spot.
Yeah.
We're not going to, like, I got you. Nimoy has his back.
You see Nimoy's, like, fondness for the cast coming through, because he gives them all some, like, really fun stuff to do. Sulu gets to, you know, have a little fight going on. DeForest Kelley gets, like, some of his best scenes. And because that's such a great idea, too. Like, you know,
Spock projecting into him.
You know, like a movie like All of Me or something, like these, like you know, like where Steve Martin has Lily Tomlin's spirit in his body. Yeah. Like there was, you know, or body switch comedies. So you have that kind of thing for Bones McCoy, where like before he died, Spock does the Vulcan mind meld with him. So now he's got a little bit of Spock in him too, and him trying to do the Vulcan nerve pinch, and then it's not working.
And like, yeah, Sulu gets some action too when they beat up those guards.
Yeah, he gives
them, flips them around.
And the costume, Sulu gets this like super cool like tan leather jacket.
For a second, I thought it was. It's like I had to lift my glasses. I'm like, is that John Shaft?
Yeah, and it's funny how Star Trek: The Motion Picture is the '70s. So, of course, it's going to have a 70s look. But, like, there is some 70s stuff that carries over into these movies, which are, you know, well into the 80s by this point.
Yeah, this is our second movie of the night from 1984.
Yeah, great year. And again, like, yeah, like, I saw this in the theater, saw Gremlins. Like, yeah, we spent a lot of time in the theater. Yeah, really great of my dad to take us to... Oh, yeah, and so you get, like, the Klingons, and then he has his pet... And again, they're like, the lessons they're learning from Star Wars are starting to sink in. And Star Wars has done its thing by this point. So, like, we've got a thorough understanding of Star Wars. So it's like, we're going to have some weird-looking aliens. We're going to have a cantina where, you know, and where people speak in weird ways. And then, yeah, we're going to have this crazy pet.
I love when the one Klingon, he's like, you have to feed him. And the Klingon, like, does, like, a mug the camera. And also, I have a Morrissey Smith, like, conspiracy theory. Like, when they're in the cantina, the one character's like, how soon is now? Yeah. And I think the Smiths song, or like, I think the song How Soon Is Now, it's like, was released. I look in the date, it came after this. So I'm thinking Morrissey was watching Star Trek 3 and wrote lyrics.
Yeah, that tracks. Green for the Bird of Prey is such a great choice, such a bold choice. And it does, like, I had somehow thought that, you know, but if you watch the motion picture or you watch the old show, they're like gray. They're just like straight gray.
I love this green.
It looks great, and the, you know, coming out of cloak, and so you get all the like sort of highlights of Wrath of Khan. You get some cool sort of like, you know, combat between the Enterprise and them. You get some cool action on Vulcan.
Oh, I love that.
To do some cool stuff on Vulcan. Like, when this came out, like, I was such a Star Wars fan, and it was like, okay, I'll go see this Star Trek thing. Star Wars is like your biological father who's like no longer around. And the Star Trek was like the stepdad who's there day in, day out, doing the hard work of raising the kids, but gets like no credit. Like, that's kind of how it was, because I'd go see all these, like, Star Trek was continuing, like, Star Wars was out of my, like, had gone. But Star Trek was still around. You get these movies, and then you get Next Generation. I'd always be like,
I was taking them for granted.
Exactly. I was like, yeah. You know, wait till my dad comes back. Like, you think you're my dad? You're not my dad. When my dad comes back,
ball games.
My dad's gonna because like Star Wars is great. I'll put up with this Star Trek bullshit, but Star Wars is the real thing. But meanwhile, like, Star Trek was there for me, like, day in, day out, doing, you know, giving me like what I need. But I'm like pining away. Yeah, and I'm pining away, like, just wait till my dad comes back. When my dad comes back, he's gonna set all of you straight, because he's, you know, like, he's getting all the credit.
Beat feet.
Yeah, but it was like, you know, movies like this was, you know, here for me, and then you know, the search for, and I just never appreciated it until now. Now I like appreciate the Star Trek. You know,
we're so blessed. Like, year in and year out, you get every 2 years you can count like clockwork for a new Star Trek movie.
I remember playing like the FASA board games, And again, like it's like, there'd be a fight over who gets to be the Klingon, because the Klingon would always have such an advantage because they could cloak and then like just boom, pop out behind you. Yeah, the space station is cool. The escape from the space station in reverse. They're like back in the truck out.
And then
and yeah, this is where where the crew of the Enterprise becomes outlaws. You know,
they gotta steal the ship and hit the road.
Yeah, that's fun. They spend a whole movie flying around in like not in the Enterprise. They spend like all of the next movie flying around in the Klingon Bird of Prey. So it's like, this is how they get there. This is how they get
so cool. It's like I'm planning on going Star Trek 4.
Yeah.
Like right up against
this. I watched that too. I like rolled one right into the other. And like the glimpses we get of Vulcan, of Spock's world, is always interesting because, you know, you see Spock on the TV show and he's always talking about logic and, oh, that's not logical and why are you doing that? But then every glimpse we get of Vulcan, it's always this, like, you would think it would be this very kind of like cold, austere, kind of like academic kind of world or whatever. But it's like very like it's very superstitious. It's very like ritualistic. It's very like supernatural. Like it's like it doesn't. It's the opposite of what you would think it would be. And it's kind of, because like, when you first saw Vulcan in the TV series, it was where he's like going back. It was amok time, and when he goes back for like, I don't know, the Pon Farr or whatever, he got that. Yes, the Vulcans have, you know, sort of cordoned off the sort of like primitive parts of their, you know, psyche and whatever. They've sort of cordoned that off and exist in this domain of like pure logic, but occasionally. They you know, they rut or whatever, like they go like the primitive, like the urges and things kind of take over, and so they have to like sort of service that through this like ritual. And so that's when we go to Vulcan. We don't go to Vulcan on a normal day. We go to like, so he's acting like a weirdo, and there's all this like you know, these gladiatorial games and like things you wouldn't expect. And then in these movies, it's like the first Star Trek movie, when we see Vulcan, it's like after Spock has gone on this like mystical journey, this spirit quest or whatever, and they're like giving him this magical jewel, and again, it's all ritualistic and statues, and it's like, you know, like that. This isn't what but again, it's the reason we're in Vulcan. And then here again, when they go to Vulcan, it's for this like ritual of rebirth and all this, and they're like carrying this like high priestess on like a sedan. Yeah.
Kirk's like, we really got to plan around our trips here.
Yeah, because they're getting a very like skewed version of Vulcan, and as a kid, it seemed like a real contradiction to me. I'm like, they've messed up. Like they've messed up. Like how, like this is not what Vulcan's supposed to be like. But watching it now, I kind of realize like, oh no, this kind of makes sense that like the Vulcans have this commitment to logic. And it's like made sense to them that, yes, they have this commitment to logic, but they are also these biological beings. And so they need to figure out ways of addressing those needs in sort of like a minimal fashion, but you know, meeting those urges and things sort of halfway. And so having these rituals and structures that like address that stuff, so that once that stuff's sort of taken care of, they can get back to business. Yeah, back to the business of cold logic. And it really wasn't until the J.J. Abrams Star Trek that we got a glimpse of like the Vulcan that we keep hearing about from Spock when he talks about Vulcan, where you'd see like the sort of Vulcan school structure and things like that. It also, a thing that's interesting to me also is that maybe like Vulcans are like all talk. Like they talk a good game about the logic and this and that, but
always
it's like
spouting off.
They're fooling themselves. They're not fooling anybody. You know, they're trying to fool themselves. They're trying to fool other people. They're posers. But that's interesting too.
That's a good angle. Dude, that is interesting. I like that.
Yeah, like it makes it feel more real and more nuanced. That you know, like the Vulcans are kind of fooling themselves a little bit.
Yeah, he's like
they're drinking their own Kool-Aid. Yeah, they're pretentious.
It's like Kirk calls him a Vulcan fart sniffer.
They get a lot of mileage out of leftover footage from Wrath of Khan, you know.
Yeah, like I love this.
The Genesis effect.
The one guy, he's Kirk's son.
Kirk's son.
you killed my son, you bastard.
Yeah. I feel bad about that. Like, it kind of makes me think of how in Aliens, you know, Ripley goes through all this trouble to sort of save Newt, and then Newt dies in like the opening crawl of the next movie. Yeah. It's kind of like that. Like, I feel bad. Like, you know, Kirk gets to have this reunion with his son, and then he gets kind of killed off, and without much ceremony. I mean, it you know, it's a way of like story-wise, like ratcheting up the stakes, and it's a surprise and stuff, but it's even like, it's kind of,
it's a bummer.
Yeah, it's a bummer, and it's unceremonious, and it kind of like happens like off camera. It's not, you know, like you don't even get to like see what's going on exactly. And
yeah, it's
she's
obscured.
Just like, he's dead. You know.
Kirk's like, what?
Yeah. Miguel Ferrer.
I love him.
Miguel Ferrer is like, he's just like an extra. He's just like somebody who's like operating one of the machines. He's like, you know, so it's like right before he kind of takes off. So it's kind of interesting seeing him.
And it's shocking seeing him with a lot of hair on his head.
Yeah. You know, I knew this version of Saavik, whatever her name is. Like, I knew this version of her. So like, I didn't, like, I knew, you know, this actress as Saavik. And then I knew Kirstie Alley on Cheers. I didn't, you know, and then I remember reading because it was a while before I saw Wrath of Khan, and I remember like reading like a Cracked magazine or a Mad magazine where it had like a Cheers parody, and they were calling her Kirstie Alien because she was only known as like the Vulcan from Wrath of Khan, and so now she's on Cheers, you know, and so, you know, that was their big reference for who she is.
That's so familiar because I'm pretty sure I can picture her with the ears and cracked.
Yeah, and cracked, yeah, Kirstie Alien. But it's interesting to me that they kept the character, because you do have enough of an opportunity for kind of a reset. Like, it's odd that they would just kind of like recast that character. Like, I could see them substituting somebody else. I mean, I understand they probably wanted a Vulcan who can kind of, you know, talk to like the young Spock and stuff. And she's got the mullet, rocking the mullet, the Vulcan
power mullet. We're seeing a lot of tight perms in '84.
Well, because the '80s are starting to like really become the '80s. And Kirstie Alley's hair in the previous one was like a little more like old school, just kind of pulled back.
This is like explosive.
Yeah, this is like, it requires 80s technology. The technology to get your hair to look like that didn't exist when they made Wrath of Khan, but does exist now. The hair products and fixatives and things.
I think we've got an entrant into the Recallies 2024 Helmet Hair Hall of Fame, Saavik.
Well, yeah.
Star Trek Through the Search.
Yeah, she's got the Adrienne Barbeau.
Power mullet.
Now, I was watching a preview for an episode of The Love Boat with Adrienne Barbeau in it, where it's like this like school reunion, and so she was like the nerd of the school, but now she's like this gorgeous beauty that like the guy who bullied her is now like in love with her.
I was listening to some commentaries, and John Carpenter was like, and there's my ex-wife Adrienne Barbeau. Obi-Wan Spocky or whatever.
Yeah, he's probably like, if you made a graph, he's probably the guy who shows up in more Star Trek than anything is Spock's dad, because it's that same actor, and he's in the old series, he's in the movies, he's in the Next Generation, because he's like still alive by the time, like his character is like hundreds of years old, so he's still alive in Next Generation. And then I think he also shows up again in the J.J. Abrams movies, playing the same role. So this guy, I think this guy has logged more hours in Star Trek than anybody else.
I'm gonna grab my the Kirk's pointy sideburns.
Yeah, his like this Kirk look is like halfway between Kirk and T.J. Hooker. You know? He's got the T.J. Hooker, when George Takei's talking about how his hair as the years goes on becomes more curly and lush, and her suit.
I was freezing it, trying to see the lines on his toupee on Max here, and like, dude, we got to do a T.J. Hooker episode.
Yeah, of course. I thought we did, but no. Yeah, I think we just met.
There's this one. He's in like this warehouse, and he's like, I think he's like up on this beam, and he's like going like this.
There's so much to make fun of with William Shatner, but he's so great. He is so great in these movies.
Like.
And the show, like, he is.
We bust his Canadian beanbag, but we fucking love. That's how we show love.
Exactly. Yeah.
on here. And like Shatner is one of the like the pillars of the total.
He's got all these great like acting tics. They're just so terrific. And again, have been like parodied to death. But I love when like the Klingons or something like hail him and bring him up on the screen. He like is facing and then like turns into, you know, like he's always got like a cool. I'm just waiting for him to say Spock, 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 Spock. It must have been interesting for Leonard Nimoy like casting like a dozen actors to like play him, because like you get the different Spocks through the ages.
Talk about during the fight scene, keep your eyes peeled for the stuntman with the huge badonka. Like,
now, do you think it's all the like harnesses and things?
I think it might be the harnesses.
Because yeah, you sure it's not like Shatner's Depends? His oops, I crapped my pants.
They're called Shatners.
But I mean, I know when he does that like triple flip in the air when he's fighting Christopher Lloyd. I know that that's not really Shatner, but
yeah, William Shatner's Shatner Depends.
Oops, I shat my pants.
Spock. He's like, can you set the teleporter just to beam up my crap only out of my pants?
This movie does feel the most like a Star Trek episode. Like it's hitting all the bases of Star Trek, you know, fisticuffs, being at odds with Starfleet, and then, you know, going to a planet, fights, yeah, the planet blowing up. DeForest Kelley is starting to rock the Mr. Furley.
Which really came front and center when we watched Star Trek V, when they were out
But this is glamping. The beginning of it. They didn't do that in Wrath of Khan. Yeah, this movie definitely like amps up, and then it has like a really nice epilogue. Like I like, because you think the movie's over, and then they go to Vulcan, you know, for all this stuff to kind of, you know, put the pieces back together. And Spock is like minimally in this movie, but I think Nimoy was okay because it starts, you know, it's a Leonard Nimoy film, you know.
Yeah,
stuff,
he's
so
like,
he's okay with.
I'm gonna put my fellow actors over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very very generous. Like he really puts everybody in their best light and really gives them something to do. So
Kirk has donned his like purple pirate shirt for the finale here with those velvet pants. Shatner looks like $1 million.
Yeah, you think of Wrath of Khan and you think, oh yeah, remember that great scene where Kirk and Khan fight each other? And it's like, that never happens, but you get that here of him with Christopher Lloyd. Is that like a lavender shirt, or is it just the lighting?
I think it might be the lighting reflecting. Here we go.
So the flip's coming up. This is... Yeah, doing the double fist. And that's not Christopher Lloyd either. That's Svengoolie as the is the stunt double for the Klingon. And then like Kirk has, that's the ass of somebody who is able to do that triple back flip.
Like I was half paying attention. Yeah. I'm like doing something else, and then I was like, wait.
But yeah, it's like there's a harness there. That's the peach emoji.
So, from now on, you gotta call the peach emoji the Shatner emoji.
So we got Svengoolie as Christopher Lloyd, and we got the stunt.
That is a serious fucking. What if that is really Bill Shatner? He's putting time in the gym, doing like leg lifts and like squats.
No, but yeah, we're about to see like an Olympic gymnast. It's that guy who did that flip. So like, imagine if Wrath of Khan was like the last Star Trek movie with this cast. And it's like, okay, so we just don't get a Star Trek movie where Kirk gets to get in an amazing fist fight with a Klingon. I guess we're never getting that, but it's like, we got it. Part 3, we get it. Like this is like, we got to, it's not perfect. It's got some saggy bits and stuff, but we get to check a lot of like really cool stuff off of the...
What a setting, an active volcano. Yeah. Like he's right over a volcano.
And it does make me think of like the ending of Die Hard or something, you know. Yeah, that's 2, 3 kicks. But yeah, as a kid, it's like, I could have sworn he kicked him in the face 14 times. It was like I really felt bad for that guy getting, like Kirk's, you know, my hero and stuff, but I felt bad for that Klingon getting kicked in the face like that. Getting curb stomped.
Kirk stomped. So, you know how they have like the 10-hour like Yule log YouTube videos? Yeah. Somebody does a 10-hour cut of him just kicking that Chris Lloyd.
Yeah, boom.
And then at the end of the 10 hours, he goes off. I've had enough of you. Spock, if you need me, I'll be in my quarters doing calf raises or whatever.
So Nimoy gets to show up. But Nimoy, there's certain motifs in these movies that get repeated. Like in Star Trek 1, V'ger comes to Earth and it's sending this transmission waiting to get a response, but this transmission that it's sending is like destroying the Earth. And then Star Trek 4, the same thing happens again, where there's this probe sending this transmission to Earth, like for the whales to send back, but it's just like that's the same beat. And then the other thing that's the same beat through a bunch of these movies is Spock sort of being kind of like out of sorts and like, what's going on? So, because like in part 1, he'd just gone through this spiritual journey to like eliminate all like humanity, from like all emotion from himself, and so he's kind of like out of it, and he's wearing his mystical clothes, and he's like not sure, he's like kind of groggy and whatever. But then by the end of it, he like gets his wits back and realizes that his like emotional, his human half is every bit as important as his like Vulcan and logical half. So that's interesting. And then with this, it's like that. It's like in Star Trek 3, since he's like reborn, it's kind of the same thing where like when he comes back, he's kind of like, yeah, who are you? Trying to figure it out. And then Star Trek 4, it's that again, where he's like, yeah, I don't like, there's something like he's learning. We
just need regular Spock.
Right, regular, yeah, because part 2 we had regular Spock, but he was like a captain, he was, he wasn't, but he does get to be regular Spock a little bit. And then Star Trek 5, he's regular Spock.
Yeah, he was able to put on his rocket boots.
Yeah, I mean, really, like we start getting regular Spock, like for real, with the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. With Zachary Quinto plays like, okay, that's like the 100% Spock.
We got to trademark regular Spock.
Yeah, and then you also get regular Spock.
Regular Spock.
Leonard Nimoy showing up in that movie too.
Dude, this was fucking great.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was fun revisiting this. This is like a moment in time, and yes, super nostalgic. Like all of this, I have nostalgia for like all the Star Trek movies. Like the first Star Trek, it's like we never went to McDonald's when I was a kid, and my grandparents felt like because my parents were like against McDonald's. They thought, oh, this is bad, I'm not taking our kids there. But my grandparents were like, you got to take your kids to McDonald's. And every Christmas they'd give us like McDonald's gift certificates to like force my parents to take us to McDonald's. But when I was a kid, my grandparents took me to McDonald's and I got the Star Trek the Motion Picture Happy Meal. It's the first Happy Meal I ever got. It's one of the first Happy Meals ever.
Amazing.
And I got it, and it was the little like radio, like little tricorder or whatever. So you turn the thing, and then it would have this little film strip of like, cartoon Spock and stuff on it. And I was trying to remember, like, I don't remember my grandparents like babysitting me like very often when I was a kid. I was trying to fit, but it's like the timing works out where it's like, I think my sister was being born. So, and I'm like so my grandparents had to like watch me and take me to McDonald's, and I got so I have the nostalgia for that.
There's always like good movie memories when your siblings are being born.
Yeah.
Went to Land Before Time, and I'm on like a VHS tape in like my dad's taking around like in the hospital room, and you hear in the background like me giving like like review of Land Before Time.
That's awesome.
This looks like $1 million, dude. That Bird of Prey is so cool.
Yeah, it's such a great ship. You can see why they're kind of like, oh yeah, forget the Enterprise. We're gonna fly around in this for a couple movies.
One of the first cool things, with Star Trek, my one buddy had the model of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And he would hang it in his room. He had drop ceiling in his room. So he would hook like the string up and it was just hanging in there. And we were like, I got to...
Well, I went to the Smithsonian, like some point in the 90s, and they had like the Star Trek exhibit where they had like the actual prop of like the Enterprise from the TV show. And then they had like the bridge of the Enterprise, and then you could stand in the transporters. It was so great to be there at that exact moment. And then I bought from the Smithsonian gift shop the little like die cast Enterprise.
That's awesome. That's like the Star Wars Disney kind of thing before
that. Yeah, it was very, very cool because like that sort of thing was not not very common. Like, yeah, how would you get to do something like that? And it was like a school trip or something. So I probably like took the money like my parents gave me, the walking around money. I bought the Enterprise.
Hey, Mom and Dad, can I get some walking around money for my trip?
But yeah, look how, like, every time we see Vulcan, it's so ritualistic. It's like, what are you guys talking about logic? You guys are the most superstitious, illogical like, weirdos. But you're saying that you're the height of, like, and again, you could view that as bad writing, or you could view it as great writing, you know?
Kirk's like, he's like, Spock's inviting us for another one of his ceremonies, and he turns around and does the jerk-off motion to, like, Bones.
Spock's always having them come to, so that they have to, like, bring, you know, like an envelope with cash. It's like he's always having some kind of,
It's a multi-level marketing scheme.
Yeah.
It's weird. Spock only invites us to his planet when he's passing the coffers around.
Yeah, this was great. I'm really glad we watched this one. And I think we're reviewing the Star Trek movies in the right order. We started with Star Trek 5, now we're Star Trek 3. We'll have to figure out what the next one is. I'm pulling for Star Trek 1 because, again, like, I love the even-numbered Star Trek, and I love the odd-numbered ones, too. I was watching this, trying to figure out, okay, which one of these characters is played by Majel Barrett? Is played by Gene Roddenberry's wife? Because, like, she was in, I mean, she was Nurse Chapel on the old series, and then she plays Nurse Chapel in, like, the first Star Trek. But I don't, the first Star Trek movie. But, like, I don't know if she's like one of these, you know, like one of these like Klingons or one of the Vulcans, or like, or who she is in this. She does, like, her, to me, like, the way I know her best is she plays Deanna Troy's mother on Next Generation. Oh, okay. Like, I think that's kind of like her juiciest role.
I'm gonna check IMDb tonight, because there's so many, like, captains and background actors that I recognize.
That's what I was, because again, when I saw Miguel Ferrer, I was like, okay, wow, that's an interesting.
The one captain that, like, they call to report that the ship's being stolen. He's like the dad.
Oh yeah, I know him. Yeah,
on like a bunch of stuff, and I was like, what is he from?
Yeah, he was looked very familiar too. So yeah,
dude, this is amazing.
So yeah, this has been fun. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby: The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And if you're a Star Trek fan, check out Jack Kirby's Star Warriors: The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion, which is some dead-on, right down the middle, classic, like, space opera fantasy. Amazing. So check that one out. I'm also the author of Witchman, a new superhero comic book, which recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And please follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli, on Instagram at Tom_Scioli, and check out my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Tom Scioli.
Follow the show on Instagram at total_recall_show.
And please like, follow, and subscribe to the Total Recall Show. And, you know, comment away, you know, tell us what you think of Star Trek 3, you know, good, bad, and indifferent.
Yeah, if you need me, I'll be in the gym trying to get that Captain Kirk.
If you identify some more, like, sort of background players, or if you know who Majel Barrett plays in Star Trek 3. I saw Yeoman Rand show up just for, like, 1 second as, like, the ship is pulling out. So, you know, and she showed up in Star Trek the Motion Picture, and I think she was also in Wrath of Khan. But, like, yeah, those sort of, like, the characters that are just outside of that inner circle, you know.
I love that.
Like, you have that inner circle of Shatner, Nimoy, and Kelly. That's, like, the inner circle. And then you have, like, the larger inner circle of George Takei and Nichelle Nichols and James Doohan and Walter Koenig. Like, you got that, but then just outside of there is, like, Nurse Chapel and Yeoman Rand. I had, like, pitched a Star Trek comic series to IDW, and you know, it still might happen at some point or whatever. I think they might still hold the license to Star Trek, but I wanted to take what we know about Shatner and Takei, and there's, like, sort of like real life friction and their real life beef or whatever. I wanted to kind of address that, like, within the fiction of and so have, like, you know, Kirk and Sulu kind of at odds, and having, like, a sort of history and some grudges and things and maybe coming to some kind of you know, reconciliation by the end of it. You know,
please come, please.
So that was one.
Please.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
But anyway, yeah, we'll see you next time in a galaxy far, far away. We'll see you in Starfleet.
Hey, Angela, live long and prosper.
Tony's like, Tony Danza's trying to angle Star Trek against Star Wars, and so he's talking to Paramount, and he's like, yeah, you saw me with, I'm real tight with R2 and 3PO, and yeah, George, he wants to build a whole trilogy around me. But, you know, if you guys, you know, if you can, you know, sweeten the deal a little bit, maybe I'll, you know, come over to Starfleet instead. You know, maybe I'll do a Star Trek instead. And then trying the same thing with George Lucas, like, yeah, well, you know, I was just talking to Paramount. They want me to be like, you know, Spock's cousin or something. So, you know, maybe let's get this thing going.
He's got his eyebrows. He's like, one thing though. The hair is off limits. He has to have that same hair. He can't. Could you imagine?
Well, they wouldn't need to give him Vulcan ears because you wouldn't be able to see him anyway.